See here what I just made? Remember, go back to like, really, it's like art class, making doilies, okay? So, I made this kind of shape. I've got these. There's my gauze. I'm gonna cut a piece. I'm gonna do her great toe. So I'm gonna have my gauze, and here I'm gonna use second skin. And what I'm gonna do with my second skin is I'm gonna make it the size, roughly, of her nail. Okay, so this is gonna be for the nail bed. This is for an ingrown toenail. Maybe you have just helped to kind of clear out an ingrown toenail. Maybe you don't have time to clear out the ingrown toenail and you just need to cover it. It's painful for them, you just need to protect it. What we don't want to do is that the shoe is pushing on the nail bed, okay? That's what's making it painful, from the top and from here. So what we want to do is create a little bit of a barrier around the nail bed. So this could be a fractured nail that again is painful, was bleeding. Now you need to just protect it and cover it, okay? So again, what you would do is you'll need your spray, but if you spray like this, you're gonna catch all the toes. So this is where you would take your Q-tip, spray your Q-tip, and paint around, or you would break your vial and you would paint around with the vial, okay? And you would do all through the back, the front, the sides. The only thing you would not put spray on is the open area if it's very injured, okay? If there's really redness, you're worried about infection, stay around that zone. Don't put the spray directly on it. So what we're gonna do here is we're going to create a bumper similar to the donut. Now there's two ways to create a bumper. Again, I take my closed cell foam, I just cut a bunch of small slits in it. Let's just say I would have sprayed this, and then we're gonna come up top of the nail bed, okay, around it. Let's just say that's the injured nail bed right there. Sometimes the nail bed here also gets damaged, depending if this is, you know, like a really fresh runner who just or injured the nail bed, right? There's like a lot of blood here. You don't have time to drain it. You're middle of the race. You're not gonna drain in the middle of the race. You're gonna drain at the end of the race. But you need to get that runner back out there. You're gonna come around like so, okay? You're gonna protect the entire nail bed. We're going to use, now the second skin, like I said, has two barriers on it, but I end up just taking the blue barrier off. I stick it down. That's gonna give a little padding. Here's also gonna give a little padding. Okay, and now we're ready. We're gonna put a hat on this tape. So we need all that to stay before she starts moving. Okay, so it sticks. Okay, now why I cut these little slits, because sometimes if you don't and you've cut too wide a piece for the hat, it'll create dog ears, okay? And then you're dealing with extra pieces of tape and wrinkles for the dog ear. Okay, here's a hat. Like so. Okay, so now you can ask your athlete to either separate their toes, or they can come down and pull that toe open, and you're gonna start going around. Okay. Now we never wanna really, I could have even made this shorter so that it's not past the joint line, okay? So a lot of athletes really like the less is more, so don't go too far past that joint line. And then we're just kind of smoothing this out. And then I want to cover right, you see that thin area of coverall? I want to cover that. Okay. Now, usually I like to finish with one more hat on top. Now this is where it kind of can be a little bit your choice, depending on the athlete. I've said many times athletes like less is more. What we could have done was a hat one way, go around, and then a hat the other way to secure it. But if we really need the padding, we do a hat one way, a hat the other way, wrap around, hat, hat again, okay? So you just have to make sure that what you're gonna do, you've cut enough pieces to secure your tape. So one more there. And then you just kind of measure to what you think the length of that toe is. Now remember, thinking about if this is the second toe, you would need even skinnier pieces and shorter pieces. And now this is the final hat, and we have protected the toe bed. Now that athlete likely can finish whatever event they're doing with this kind of tape on. The final step when you're doing toes is you need to take your skin lube, the same lube that was in your heel and lace pads, and you need to put it right here and right here, because as this rubs in the shoe, it can create friction, and then we can deal with a blister on this toe. So we always put on the neighboring toes lube as your final step. If it's this toe I'm taping, we would need to put lube on this side and this side. Okay? Okay, good. Any questions about that?
Yeah, can you do it on any of the toes?
You can do it on any of the toes. The only thing you're gonna get into trouble with is, look how small the space is.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily need the full donut as the bumper. You would just use a bumper like this. Instead of cutting it, you would just cut a small piece. Assume I would have sprayed. And I bumper there. And depending if the nail bed here is injured and we don't want the shoe on top to come down, you put a bumper like that. And now you fill that space with a small teeny piece of second skin, a small piece of gauze, and you do the same exact things, except these are much skinnier and smaller in length, right? Because then we'll be crossing the joint line. Okay, so that's how it kind of looks for all the rest of the toes. But you have to think which toes usually get damaged. It's either this one or this one. If this one's longer than the first, this one's gonna hit the shoe first, and that's why we see the hematoma here at the second toe. Okay, here we'll see it if this one's longer than this one, and there's either just too much room in the shoe, they're sloshing around, or the shoe's too tight and they're banging up against the end of the shoe, right? So this is how it would look for all the rest of these toes, but these guys usually don't get that involved. Sometimes you'll see a little, because of a bunion here, you'll see a little, and you can do bunions the same way if there's padding that needs to happen around the bunions, but sometimes you'll see a fifth blister, but it's more rare there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That was a good question. Okay, so that's how that looks if you're on a different toe. And then, can we have you turn onto the